Time, space, reality. It's more than just a linear line. It's a prism. And we are here to talk about what if. And I'm joined by my fellow watchers, Alyssa and Darrin. Darrin, thank you so much for joining.
Oh, so excited to be here. Really excited to talk about this season and maybe with a little comparisons to last season. So I'm looking forward to tonight's discussion.
Awesome. And of course, Alyssa, thanks as always for joining.
Of course, of course. But what if I did kill Thanos? What if I did? What then? Anyways, yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here to talk about this season of What If.
Awesome. So yeah, talking about season two of What If, and I guess we'll just start with our overall thoughts of the season. I don't know if either of you had seen my review I did for What If. Alyssa has. I have no idea what you two think of it, so it'll be interesting to see what you think of it. I loved it. I thought it was better than season one. I thought it was more cohesive, and I liked the what if questions. They seemed like the weird like parallel universe type stuff that I liked from the comics, like more so than season one. Season one was had a lot of what if this character was that character, and what if that character was this character, and they seem to diversify a bit more this season and introduce new characters, and they made Peggy Captain Carter the main character of the show, and I'm with it. Like I like it. I thought that was a really good move, and yeah, there wasn't a single episode I didn't like this season. Whereas the previous season there were two episodes I really didn't like. There was one I thought was okay, but there was none that I really didn't like, and the rest I thought were great. So yeah, I thought this was a good season. So we'll kick it over to you, Darrin.
I guess my summary for the season is kind of like the summary that I would happen after each episode I watch, which is basically, wow, that was a lot more enjoyable than I thought it'd be. Um, so I think, yeah, I'm kind of with you on this season. There's definitely an improvement over season one, which I really had a lot of issues. It just none of the real titles, none of the real kind of what if ideas really kind of got to me outside of like one or two little ones. So I really did find myself like, man, I don't care about Nebula and Nova Corps. And then the episode ends. I'm like, wow, that was really a lot more fun than I thought it would be. That was great. And the same thing where we get with the Peter Quill, which ends up being like an 80s Avengers thing. I totally agree with you with the Captain Carter stuff. I think that was a brilliant choice to not only bring the character back, but kind of have a focus on that. And I know the internet or sections of the internet were all like, we don't want Captain Carter. Why are they pushing us on? One, she's an awesome character. Two, Haley Atwell, still very excited to play the character, still happy to do the voice, and brings that MCU feel to it because, look, let's be honest, Chris Evans ain't coming back. He's not doing Steve Rogers' voice in this. So we got the movies and everything with Captain America, and I thought that was great. I think now that What If sort of feels like it's building its own What If universe. I know it's a whole multiverse bit, but they're telling stories about characters and then bringing back kind of those variations. The Happy Hogan in this episode, I love that we have an adventure of kind of a Hulk Happy Hogan. And then when we get this Avengers in 1604 episode, it's the same Happy who's also potentially could Hulk out. And I kind of like that we get to see these variants, that it's not necessarily just relying on the MCU, but also building its own stable of characters that it can tell variations and stories of. And I think it gives it an opportunity to make it a really rich, interesting, and fun universe. And I definitely think that's something they leaned in on this one too. A lot more fun with a lot of these episodes.
Awesome. Okay, and Alyssa, your thoughts?
Well, first I'll say you have no idea what we think of it, but if you've watched my top 10 of 2023, which I assume you would have,
Oh yeah, I did. So I do have an idea. Yes.
number 6 for the year for me.
Yeah.
Slightly lower than what you had. I think you had it at number 4.
Yeah, it was number 4. Yeah.
But still, it immediately jumped right into my top 10. I gave it a 9 out of 10 rating. Clearly an improvement over season 1. I have not heard anyone say differently, and if they did, they would be wrong, because this is just objectively a better season than season 1. What I love most about the season is I feel like they were taking more risks and thinking more outside the box, and I think it really paid off. Like Darrin said, the Nebula thing, I was like, who cares about that? But it ended up being really, really fun and really good. It was like this noir detective story, which is not usually my favorite genre, but it really ended up being really fun and enjoyable. Yeah, the Happy Hogan thing, a little outside of the box. The Peter Quill, the 1980s Avengers, like let's invent what if the I mean, it could have been called What If the Avengers Assembles in 1980s, but they already did that for a later episode with the Avengers Assemble in 1602, so they couldn't do that twice. But it is kind of like that, like what if the Avengers is assembled in the 80s and there's a different Avengers team, and it's the heroes that would have been around in that time period in the MCU, and I love that. I thought that was really creative. And then, of course, inventing a whole new character. I mean, that is just really risky and really new territory for What If. Let's just make up our own character that not only does not exist in the MCU, but does not exist in the comic books. Let's do that. And it was fantastic. They did a great job with it. So I'm just really blown away. They took a lot of risks and tried new things, and it really paid off well. And I will echo the sentiments of that. I love Captain Carter being made the main character of the show. I've heard speculation that Haley Atwell will play that version of Captain Carter in live action, and she'll be a big part of Secret Wars, and I think she damn well should be. I mean, she's the first one to get to see the Loki tree, as far as we know. She went and visited the Loki tree. I mean, they're setting this character up to be a really important character for the greater MCU and the multiverse saga. So we have already seen, of course, Haley Atwell play a live action variant of Captain Carter, but it was a different one because she got killed immediately by the Scarlet Witch. And I love the idea that there are multiple universes where there's a Captain Carter, not just this one that we're following. But I love that idea. I don't care what. Yeah, I gave it a little middle finger before. I don't care about all the haters for Captain Carter. Like, seriously, just gonna say it's probably a bunch of white dudes. I don't know, just guessing. But like, how dare you have a female figure be a main character? How dare you? So I love Captain Carter. I love this particular version of Captain Carter so much. So I really want them to actually do that, and I think they will. I was scrolling through Facebook today, and I got a little thing on my Facebook feed that says, today's the 9-year anniversary of the premiere of Agent Carter. And I've never watched that show. So now I'm like, I should go back and watch that show. I know that Darrin probably had discussed it on his channel before.
It's a fun watch. I think you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm now in Peggy Carter mode. I kind of do want to watch that show.
So I think the last time I flew to New Zealand, they had the first 6 episodes of Peggy Carter or Agent Carter on the plane, so I watched them, and it was okay. I wasn't sold, so I never bothered to watch the rest of them, but I thought it was okay. It just reminded me of a typical like network sort of action show or whatever.
I mean, that's fair. It is, and I think the first season, I think as a lot of first seasons do, they were still kind of finding their feet. I think they let a lot more interesting stuff in the second season, and then of course the show got canceled when they were obviously building towards something else. So expect a little bit of disappointment in that sense. But I love Atwell as the character, and it's just I really enjoyed seeing that kind of move.
No, absolutely. Like I'm much more of a fan of how they're using her in What If, and I would love to see the same version of Captain Carter more. So that's really good news that she's going to appear more in
I mean,
in
that's a
Secret
rumor.
Wars.
That's not like
Yeah, no, but I buy it though. But hopefully she won't get cut in half this time.
yeah, no, a huge part. I think she should be. I think that they have set her up to be a major player in the Secret Wars. If you're going to do the multi-universal line there, I think that she has to be a big part of it.
Oh, speaking of Marvel news, I was going to mention, I don't know if you heard this, and I don't know if this is also just a rumor, but I heard that What If is having season 3, but then being canceled.
I didn't hear the canceled part, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I would put very little stock in those types of rumors because most of those just tend to be clickbait. I do know that. I mean, there's open talk that season 3 has been greenlit.
Well, it's possible that maybe the creators were deciding to end it after season 3, because I see a lot of articles where people say this show's getting canceled, but really no, the creators are deciding to end it, which is not the same thing as canceled. Like I remember reading an episode for Dark before season 3 came out saying Dark's being canceled. I was like, what, we're not getting season 3? But no, they were just talking about the showrunners ending the show after season 3. I'm like, well, that's not canceled.
Well, yeah, but even then, that's clickbait to pull in. Yeah. So they might be like, oh, rumors are that this might be its final season, which is like you said, an entirely different discussion. I don't really see Disney going like, let's not play with this Marvel cash cow right now. They might put something off, but look, Disney Plus needs stuff. So
I don't know. I believe it because of all the issues Disney's having with the Marvel fatigue, and that they're going to be trimming. There's a lot of pressure on the CEO because they lost like tons of money to trim some of the Marvel stuff. Sure. And I could see What If is not super popular, so I could see that getting an axe.
Yeah. I mean, maybe, but again, all they have to do is just push the next season and until they want, and then just not. So, I mean, yeah, they could. I see it hard that, like, if they really want that Marvel cash cow working, it's best to squeeze as much things out of it. And the fact that they can still get so many actors in to do their original parts.
No, yeah.
I think is a fun thing. It's really an extra grab for the audience.
Yeah, I would be okay with that being the final season as long as Peggy Carter gets to be the That's all I want.
Yeah, I think 3 seasons of What If would be a good run, but hey, I would always like more.
Sure.
All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Let's jump into the episodes going in order. We'll start with episode 1. What if Nebula joined the Nova Corps? Yeah, I was the same. I was very sort of skeptical about this episode, and because it wasn't a completely interesting premise for me. And also when they introduced the noir style, I was like, I'm not really a fan of the detective noir style. But introducing like the power team with Howard the Duck and Korg and who's that scissor guy that was also like hanging out with Korg and Thor Ragnarok? Is that who else was there? And then there was Groot. That was an awesome, like, and I thought I didn't see who did the voice of Groot, but he sounded just like Vin Diesel to me.
Well, I told you who did the voice of Groot.
Oh, who was it?
I sent you. Yeah, it's I can never pronounce.
Oh, yeah, you did tell me. That's right.
Fred,
but I forgot already.
He's the guy who does the voice.
Oh, yes.
Flex. Fred.
Yeah.
Chushu, however you say his name. The same guy
Tatas
voice for Shax. Yeah. And I was watching this episode, and I saw in the opening credits that guy's name, and I was like, "Oh, that's the guy who does Shax." And I watched the whole episode, like trying to figure out who the hell he was voicing, and I could not figure it out. And then I watched the ending credits at the end, where it says who was playing who, and I was like, Oh, of course, he was Groot. That actually makes a lot of sense. I think there's some crossover there with Shax and Groot.
Yeah, but I remember when I was watching it, I thought, "Wow, he sounded just like Vin Diesel." But yeah, that's pretty interesting to hear. Is the same guy that did Shax. But yeah, so I thought that power team was great. I thought the plot twist of finding out that it's the Glenn Close character who was, I can't remember her name, who was actually like behind the whole thing the whole time, and that because everyone's going stir crazy. And then it's an interesting premise that they had to put a shield over the world to protect themselves from Ronan the Accuser, and that they were all going crazy as shit for being there, and they were starting to turn on each other because of that. And I thought that, yeah, and having the Nebula character not giving a shit, the typical Noir hero, but I thought it fit really well for her character and for the story. And again, the power team with, I was never a fan of Howard the Duck. When they showed him in the post-credit screen scene in the first Guardians of the Galaxy, I'm like, oh, come on, no one wants to see him. But then he's so funny in this episode, like it just works so well. And of course, this is the first of 2 episodes where we're treated with Taika Waititi doing the voice of Korg in both episodes. He's freaking hilarious. So that was great. So yeah, overall, surprisingly, really liked this episode. Alyssa, your thoughts?
Yeah, I also surprisingly like this episode. I heard what if Nebula joined the Nova Corps. I was like, yeah, who cares? But I've noticed that in this season, there's a few episodes like this where I think they choose the more flashy title and I think it's a good choice, as opposed to like what the trigger event was. I mean, really, the trigger event is what if Ronan, did he kill Thanos? I don't remember if he killed him or if he Ronan was the big bad instead of Thanos.
I think he did kill him.
He did kill him.
Yeah.
So that's that's kind of the trigger event. That's what made the universe different. And I noticed that a lot of the episodes, the thing that makes the universe different is not what the title is. And I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think that worked well. But that's really what the core of it is. And because Ronan killed Thanos, then we end up with this detective noir with with Nebula. And I've also heard a lot of comparisons to Blade Runner as well. That I actually saw shot by shot comparisons from the Blade Runner movie of like the city and this. They're very similar. So is that kind of feel. And yeah, not typically my favorite thing, but I think if you're going to put a character in that setting, Nebula is the perfect one to put in there. And it was, dark and gritty, but also, it has that comic relief with Howard the Duck and with Korg. And he had that line and it was like, we look really cool or something like that when the whole team gathered together. Don't we look really cool? So, he had a similar line in the other episode. I'll get to that when we get to it. But I love the kind of a little bit of breaking the fourth wall, like kind of remarking on like the typical superhero gathering trope, a superhero team getting together thing. So yeah, it all worked well for me. I will say though, I know Mark, you said you were a little. I believe in your review, you said you were a little surprised by or you didn't see it coming, the betrayal of.
Yeah, I didn't see it coming.
Yeah, that I definitely did see coming from a mile away. I will have to say. And then I watched some video where they were talking about how that's actually a common trope in a noir, where like the leader figure or the mentor figure is the traitor. And I don't know if I necessarily like specifically remembered that, but I definitely felt like it was a trope I'd seen before, and I kind of was expecting her to be the villain. But I hold nothing against it for that. Like sometimes things are predictable, and it's totally fine. It doesn't have to be. Not everything has to be a huge shock. So it was different from you a little bit there. That I did see it coming, but it doesn't matter. It still worked well for me. Now I wouldn't say this is my favorite episode of the season, but certainly a lot better than I was expecting it to be.
Just a quick question: is in the regular universe, was it 61606 or whatever?
616. Yeah.
Yeah. Is Novacore wiped out from Thanos? Did he wipe it out like in before, like in between films, before Infinity War?
I thought I remember hearing something about that in one of the
Yeah.
It's kind of implied, I think, because that's where he gets the Power Stone from, who was last
Yeah.
set up at Novacore headquarters. So I think they may, I don't know if they specifically say it, but they definitely imply that it's, they've been wiped out. But yeah.
Oh, okay.
I feel like they might have even said it, but I'm a little
Yeah.
fuzzy on the memory.
Yeah, me too. I don't remember. Anyway, Darren, your thoughts on the episode?
Yes, and that's Meek. Meek is my friend. He is the scissors of our group. Uh, very squishable. Yeah. Again, this was, like I said, that first one where I finished watching it. I was like, wow, that was a lot more fun than I thought it was. I like the fact that they kind of go into a genre. They tell a noir story. It really works for Nebula's character. The fact that, again, Yondu gets to show up and still have like a little piece, but is now, the fallen character that brings the detective really deep into the mystery. And you're right. The common trope of having the mentor figure or something being behind that. I think, what was it in well, I guess Minority Report's not very noir specifically, but it's still another one of those where it's like ultimately, again, spoilers for a very old film. It's the mentor who's behind it. What? No. Yeah. Funny not seeing that coming for Minority Point. It's a seeing the future joke, folks. If you've seen the movie, you'll get it. But yeah, I thought this was kind of a fun telling of the story. I didn't totally see it coming. I think I saw it just before it hit, of the big switcheroo and so on, because I was caught up in what was going on. I like the idea of the planet falling to ruins if it's completely isolated. It kind of gave a good feel. And it was also a nice bit because the one thing I think they did a lot in the first season was what if this character was this character? What if this character was over here? And I generally didn't find those very interesting. I don't think that they were told in an interesting way. So with that title, like you were saying, Alyssa, almost giving that hint of like, it's not a very flashy title, but it's a lot more, it kind of pulls you in. You're expecting that, I think, kind of last season, just sort of switcheroo. Oh, it's going to be, Nebula's going to be Nova, and now we're going to have a different superhero thing. It really took the opportunity to tell an interesting, different story that I wouldn't have expected. That ended up landing really fun. And like I said, by the time it was over, I was, I'd put it off and put it off. And then I was really excited and almost looking forward to catching the next episode. So even though it was about Peter Quill as a kid, which again, doesn't sound great, but ended up being better than I thought.
Yeah, I thought it was. I thought it sounded interesting, but anyway, we go ahead and jump into that. Episode 2: What if Peter Quill attacked Earth's mightiest heroes? I was not expecting this to be an '80s Avengers because the title didn't really give that away. But again, this to me is a classic what if scenario. Like, what if Yondu never turned over Peter Quill to what if he actually did? Sorry, what if he actually did turn him over to Ego? What would have happened? And it was interesting that sort of sped up the events of the Avengers assembling, and then we get all these known characters who are known to be around in the '80s: Peggy Carter. What's Tony Stark's father's name? Howard? No,
Howard
is it Howard
Stark?
Stark? Yeah, Howard Stark, and yeah, and then all the rest, the Giant Man. I had to explain to a friend who Giant Man was. It's like, who is Giant Man? It's like, do you remember Lawrence Fishburne and Ant-Man? And, oh, okay, that was him. And he actually did the voice for him. But yeah, and didn't they have Marvel? She seemed kind of out of place, but I don't know. But it was interesting, like, and again, what they did with it, and they, oh, of course, the Winter Soldier, and how he ended up like turning on them and trying to kill Peter Quill when they were trying to use Peter Quill to get Ego. Like, I like how they had young Hope as well, who, like, set Peter free and sort of realized before any of the adults did that he was just a kid and being used by his father, and how she convinced Hank to go over and try to sort of make peace with him, and he did. And I thought it was quite thrilling. So I thought had good heart, had good character stories, was pretty suspenseful, and yeah, them taking on Ego, yeah, pretty amazing. So yeah, another good episode. So yeah, Darren, we'll start with you this time.
Yeah, again, the same kind of type of thing. I'm like, do I care about this at all? Peter Quill coming as a kid to, and then, like you said, it turns into an 80s Avengers movie, and they take some real interesting choices and do some fun storytelling. And, and you still get some things, as usual. Ego had killed himself in the beginning because once he killed Peter's mom, it was going to be all over. Doesn't matter which universe. I think that's the canon event here, kind of like we had in Spider-Verse. Ego always has to kill Peter's mom, so Peter's always going to turn ultimately on Ego. But it was really kind of interesting. I do, like I said, I really like Hank Pym in these. The last season's episode where we had like crazy Hank Pym taking out all the Avengers was actually my favorite episode of the season. And I just love something about Michael Douglas just digging into this character and having fun with it. And while he got to play kind of an insane guy last season, he really had some range and some fatherly reflection and kind of looking back at himself and everything else, and very introspective in many ways. And again, that was something that the show, episode by episode, keeps pulling out. Is I'm like, wow, you're hitting me in kind of emotional points I didn't expect you to. And I really kind of enjoyed that. And it just put a nice fun flavor to everything. So yeah, like I said, while I would not have normally thought that this would be an interesting thing, the way they pulled it out, the old Avengers, you get the little quick, you get some of the characters, and now a different version of other characters. I thought it was sort of a great bit. And I love how we are almost establishing these like multiple decade Avenger teams. Like, if this had to happen now, who would you put together? It's kind of a fun little bit.
Yeah, as I said at the beginning, I thought this was another creative idea. Like a lot of the episodes this season, where what if there was an Avengers level threat in the 1980s and they had to throw a team together? Like, who's around then? And let's just put them all together. And there's an idea and then there's execution. And I thought the execution was really great as well. And yeah, another one where I saw the title and was like, really? Do I care about this? And then ended up quite enjoying it. And I do appreciate that Peter Quill was not really the villain, because I feel like in the trailers they kind of like wanted to lead you to believe that that's what it was, and certainly at the beginning of the episode they lead you to believe that Peter Quill is just completely evil in this universe, and I love the connection with Hope, and these are two characters that, if I recall, I don't think have met in the 616 universe, but here they are, childhood friends, maybe end up being lovers in this universe, who knows, or at least lifelong friends. So that's really interesting as well. Yeah, and I do like that the Peter Quill was not really the villain, and as Darren said, like the canon events, that no matter what, Ego's always has killed Peter's mom, and Peter is always not going to like that. And they even drew from lines from Guardians of the Galaxy 2, or just similar lines where Peter discovers I don't know if that was word for word, but it was a very similar type scene when Peter discovers that Ego killed his mom and reacts very much the exact same way. And a lot of the episodes do that. They draw from, as we go through, we'll talk about it. They draw from events from the main MCU, and there's a way where you could do that where it just seems like you're just rehashing things. This is not creative. But they always, throughout this whole season, they're always able to incorporate those lines or those scenes from the actual MCU in a way that makes sense for the story, that forwards the characters, that is actually good writing and actually really enjoyable. So they did just an excellent job with this episode. Another one that was, again, much better than I expected it to be.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So yeah, let's go ahead and move over to the next episode. What if Happy Hogan saved Christmas? So when I heard about this episode, I'm like, this is gonna suck. This is gonna be a terrible episode. And it was okay. I didn't think it totally sucked. I was still my least favorite of the season easily, but it was all right. Like it was fun. I liked Darcy was a lot of fun, and what's his face? What Hammer? What's his first name? Is it Mike Hammer?
Justin Hammer.
Justin Hammer. Yeah. Finally seeing him return, and he was actually voiced by Sam Rockwell, and so that was great. Like his lines were funny, but the one thing I didn't like about this episode is that it seemed to imply that Die Hard is a Christmas movie. It's not. It is not a Christmas movie because it's a Christmas themed episode, and they basically did the plot of Die Hard. But yeah. Anyway, but I did like some of the jokes that came with them doing a Die Hard. I thought was kind of funny, and then of course seeing Happy Hogan turn into I can't remember what his comic book character was called. Just a version of the Hulk. Is it not Abomination? That's the other one. I can't remember what it is. But anyway, seeing him turn into a version of the Hulk, that was pretty cool. I thought it was funny how the Avengers were attacking him, and Darcy had to step in and be like, "No, he's the good guy. He's the bad guy." That was pretty funny. So yeah, it was a halfway decent episode. It was okay. It was amusing, but yeah, it's not really what I don't think lives up to the rest of the season. Alyssa, we'll start with you this time.
Yeah, I too was expecting it to suck when I saw the title, but I think I liked it more than you. This is not my least favorite episode of the season. I'll tell you what that is shortly. But all of the episodes are good. Like there's no bad episode. There's one that I take a little more issue with, and we'll get to that soon. But this one, it was just a ton of fun. I just had a great time with it. If you're going to do a comedy episode, you got to have Darcy. I mean, why not have Darcy there? And I actually saw a video that was talking about the like things in the What If episodes that could also be canon in 616, and that said that for all we know, Darcy could have been an intern at the for Tony Stark at this time period because we don't actually know what she was doing. So maybe she was, maybe she wasn't, but I think she fits perfectly into this. Like I love her in this episode. Now, as for the Die Hard stuff, I didn't read it as promoting the idea that Die Hard is a Christmas movie. I mean, the people who are objectively wrong about Die Hard being a Christmas movie are always going to insist on that, and they're always going to be objectively wrong. Die Hard, as anyone with sense knows, is a movie that is set during Christmas time, and it is not about Christmas. But whatever, I've just kind of given up that argument. Like, people are going to think what they think, and they're always going to die on that hill and always insist that it's a Christmas movie. So they don't need an episode of What If to reaffirm them, like, or to knock them down if that were the case. It doesn't matter. I don't care. Like, those people can just continue being objectively wrong for the rest of their lives, not understanding what a Christmas movie actually is. But to me, it was just having the Die Hard elements in it was a lot of fun. I just I enjoyed it too much to like really be bothered by it. So, yeah, and I when I first heard about the episode, was not expecting the Hulk element to be in it, and that's another thing that I heard pointed out as something that was that true in the MCU as well. Is that this episode implies that Tony Stark and Banner did have a Hulk serum stashed away during this time period, which has not ever been said in the mainline MCU, that existed during this time period. So we could infer that maybe it did in our universe as well. But it doesn't matter whether it did or not. I mean, it's what if they can do what they want.
Oh, wait, before you go, Darren, I got a quick question. Another question. Did Justin Hammer kill all the party guests? Because he said something, and then all those Iron Man suits came up behind him, and then we never did. I don't remember ever seeing the party guests again after that.
That's a good question, and I probably was just too caught up to actually pay attention.
Because I wouldn't like that. I think that would be too dark.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's true.
No, I know. Didn't they pull like an evacuation bit? So I think it's really more.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't remember. They could
Oh,
have been.
I wasn't actually finished yet. I did have.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Because I will say that I do not care about seeing Justin Hammer again. I never wanted to see him again. Honestly, Iron 2 is my absolute least favorite movie in the entire MCU, even below Thor: The Dark World. I've always hated that movie, and I've always hated Justin Hammer as a villain. But he works well for this episode because it's more like kind of a comedy episode, it's a little tongue-in-cheek, and he's more of a comedic, like incompetent villain, because he is an incompetent villain, and he wasn't in Iron Man 2. He was a terrible villain, and I hate him. But he works well because this is more tongue-in-cheek. This is more of a comedy episode. So I don't mind him here. But I wasn't like, oh, good, Justin Hammer. I'm so happy they finally brought him back. No, not at all. But I don't mind him. He worked well for this type of episode.
I just wanted him back because I like Sam Rockwell. But I think he was perfect for this episode. As you said, the incompetent villain works so well in this episode.
Yeah, it's not Justin Hammer to us. It's Sam Rockwell. Sam Rockwell's having a blast, and we're there to have a blast with him. Yeah, I'll just say that if you want to think Die Hard's a Christmas movie and that's what you watch at Christmas, great. And if you know it's not a Christmas movie, then you're right. For the exact reasons that Alyssa said. And in which case, it does kind of work for this because this is also an episode that's set at Christmas. I don't know how very Christmas themey it really is. Outside of, the good guys win and the bad guys lose, but that happens with Die Hard also.
Well, you do have Thor come in at the end and go, Merry Christmas.
Sure, but again, it's like,
and the
like
title of the
weapon. It's
episode
set
is-
at Christmas,
Yeah.
and someone says that, but yeah, there's no universal theme. But yeah, this was more fun than I thought it was going to be, and it can't be the worst episode for one singular reason, and that is the AI that they find at the end is Werner, and it's voiced by Werner Herzog, who is talking about the inequities of life and so how much look introspective to understand the meanings of the universe. I fucking love that. I'm sorry for swearing, but the moment that I saw Werner, I was like, oh, please. And they did. And I just, I have to go with that. If you're going to put Werner Herzog in something and let him be him, I'm all about it. But yeah, it was just fun. And it's the Freak is Hogan's alter state, which I think it's old comic. I think that's been around like ages ago. This is kind of a reintroduction of the character. I don't honestly know all that much about Hogan's freak life and existence, except in Marvel, of course. Everybody's going to end up getting irradiated, exposed, power suited, or heightened to a next level of existence. If you're in the comics long enough, that's what's going to happen. But this was fun, and I loved him fighting against it, and I love Die Hard as a movie, so the fact that we're going to have Justin Hammer trying to do a Hans Gruber and, of course, failing completely at it, uh, I thought was just a blast. So, no, I finished this one and I was like, "Wow, that was fun. I had a good time." I was not expecting that with Happy Hogan Saves Christmas. I thought this was gonna be totally stupid, and it ended up just being just a fun time. Nothing great, but a fun time.
Now I'm trying to remember at the end, didn't they have a thing where Justin Hammer was like falling off the building like Hans Gruber did in Die Hard,
Yes.
but then someone swung by and saved him?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no,
gotta do the slow motion.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that, yeah, no, that was funny. All right. So let's go ahead and move over to the next episode. What if Iron Man crashed into the Grandmaster? And this was supposed to be in season one. I don't know how I feel about like the reminder, like the previously on on What If, where they at the very start of the episode and they showed Gamora in the was it Guardians of the Multiverse, and like this is her story, and then the episode's actually about Tony Stark. So I don't know, I found that maybe a bit of a disappointment, but the episode itself, I really liked. I thought this was a lot of fun. A lot of people comparing it to sort of Mad Max. I think seeing it's basically like Thor Ragnarok, but with car racing instead of gladiator fighting, and Tony Stark instead of Thor. And I loved that. I thought that was such as one of my favorite movies, and I thought Tony Stark fit in so well in this environment. It was so great. Again, we get Korg again, who's always hilarious and particularly hilarious in this episode. When he said something like that, he used me as a paperweight, and I didn't like that. But anyway, yeah. So seeing him team up with Valkyrie and yeah, having that, I don't know. I wasn't a huge fan of the Gamora thing. It's kind of similar to her storyline in Guardians, but instead of Peter Quill, it was Tony Stark. So but that, yeah, it was still interesting. I still really liked it. I think the ending where they killed Thanos was rushed, and maybe I just feel that because I already knew she killed Thanos from the Guardians of the Multiverse episode mentioned it, and we didn't see the Infinity Stone Stomper. I was expecting to see that because that was like a major, the Crusher thing. That was a major plot point of the season finale last year. But whatever. Maybe I missed it. I'm not sure. But other than that, no. I thought this was a really fun episode, and it's funny because as I was watching the episode, I was like, who did they get to do the voice of Valkyrie? She's just doing a very bad job of sounding like Tessa Thompson. And then I looked it up and it said Tessa Thompson. I was like, oh, okay, never mind. It's actually her. Okay, but it was cool. So yeah, overall, I thought this was a lot of fun. I think, yeah, again, seeing Tony Stark and freaking Jeff Goldblum, I think the Grandmaster thing, I think it was a good combination. So anyway, Darren, we'll start with you this time.
It's funny that you mentioned that about Tessa Thompson because I had to double check the credits that it was Jeff Goldblum doing Jeff Goldblum's voice because for the most part, he sounds like him and it's Jeff Goldblum. Of course, he's going to do it. He's having a blast. But I feel that he's actually playing a variation of the Grandmaster in this as opposed to the one that we've seen before, because he's a little more smarmy. He's a little more smooth. He's a little more gooey, if I may even reference his final form in the episode. There's kind of a snideness to him that I didn't necessarily get out of Ragnarok, not at this particular level. So I feel like almost this was Goldblum doing a variation of Goldblum, which again sounded great. But because of those small differences, I almost had to look back like, is it the same guy or is it someone doing a riff on Goldblum? Anyway, this was also another one of those episodes where I wasn't really sure how I was going to feel about it. I like the kind of variation on Stark and his urge to get home throughout it all. the Gamora story really felt like, kind of like a back door to Gamora's story, because I feel like she's really in the background. And I always thought Stark was kind of overselling the "come on, Gamora, you got to do the right thing" bit more than what I felt the episode really made sense should be happening. Again, not in a bad way or anything. I was still fun with the ending, and I loved how they went and took out Thanos at the end with the big haha punch, or whatever it is that they ended up doing there. And you're right, there was that Mad Max crazy race style with everybody's different forms and variations, and just, the track constantly changing. And that Goldblum's got, or the Grandmaster, he's just Goldblum. Always has something or three up his sleeve in order to make him win. I mean, I loved at the end, he's like, and as you saw, it was a tie, which, as we know, is up to my discretion who wins then, and it's me. Even if he loses, he's going to find some way to win. And then hitting him with the melty staff, I thought was kind of a fun thing to do at the end there. I guess that's what ended up happening with Thanos there, is you got melty staffed. But the glove got melty staffed, and then he got. Anyway, I thought it was a fun variation on how to quickly deal with that problem. But I do agree it felt kind of rushed, because again, it was like, oh, and by the way, right after this, Gamora killed Thanos. Yay! Where did that come from? She was like, the third place finally come back to help us win at the end. That's really kind of a tacked on ending. But again, it was fun. I enjoyed it. But maybe just not as, I didn't care quite as much about the Gamora storyline in this.
All right, Alyssa, your thoughts?
Yeah, well, first I'll say that I do disagree with you, Mark, on the opening. To me, it was necessary to tie this into season one, because they didn't put it in season one. So I was always like, how's that going to fit in season two after they've already done season one, already done the multiverse of the Guardians of the Multiverse. And so to me, I needed that connective tissue there. So I'm glad they had that. I know that didn't work for you. To me, I wanted that. So that I didn't have a problem with. That said, and remember, no episode was bad, but this was my least favorite episode. And I think it's because it felt like a season one episode, like where there was a lot, and I feel this way about a lot of the season one episodes, where I feel like there was a lot of good stuff in it. There was a lot of fun stuff in it. The interactions between the Grandmaster and Tony Stark, as you talked about, the whole Mad Max racing. Korg, of course, was great. I think he had a line something like, "Oh, look, walking in slow motion," like where they're coming out, they're walking in slow motion. A lot of great stuff in it, but it's then just like there's just like contrived writing and just forced writing in it, which really reminded me of season one. So it was like, of course, this belongs in season one. And my big issue is I do not think the Gamora killing Thanos thing was earned at all. Like I think we're relying on, oh, well, she turned on Thanos in our universe, so clearly she was going to in this universe. But I saw nothing on the screen that told me that she would go from the extreme of being, she was like all in on Thanos in the beginning. Like, she's like, I am Thanos' daughter and I'm going to work for Thanos. Like, she was 100% on, like, pro Thanos. Maybe, I mean, it could be implied that underneath she really was having doubts, but we didn't see that on screen. What we saw on screen was like all in on Thanos. Tony Stark gives her a couple of lame speeches, and suddenly she kills Thanos. Where does that come from? Like, I could see her maybe, okay, I'm gonna leave Thanos. Tony Stark talked me into, okay, I'm not gonna work with Thanos anymore. I'm going to go off and do my own thing, like much like what happened in the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Sure, I buy that. I'm killing Thanos now, not earned in the least. And I really, like, it really did kind of bother me. And so this, again, I still enjoyed all the fun stuff that we talked about. So not a bad episode by any means, but very much felt like a season one episode where there was good stuff in it, but it just felt like forced, contrived writing. And I am glad that they changed the title. My username comes from the original title of this episode, which was supposed to be "What If Gamora Killed Thanos?" And thank God they didn't call it that. And I also heard that they didn't change anything. So this was going to be the episode in season 1 called "What If Gamora Killed Thanos?" And that would have been awful because that has nothing to do with, I mean, it's just something tacked on at the end. So I am glad they changed the title, but I still feel like leapfrogging all the way from Team Thanos to I'm killing Thanos now out of nowhere just because Tony Stark made a couple of speeches. I don't buy it. I just don't buy it at all. So that's why I would have to say this is my least favorite of the season.
No, I agree with you. I that it wasn't earned at all, and yeah, I remember thinking the same thing as like his speeches about, oh, you can be better. I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. But it felt like a rushed version of her storyline in Guardians of the Galaxy, which I think is kind of fair because they only have a half-hour episode to do it, and then they're trying to do her same thing. And I do agree it was rushed and tacked on, but it didn't bother me quite as much.
Well, yeah, and also, I mean, if you're going to title an episode like "What If Gamora Kills Thanos," this episode is like Tony Stark and the Grandmaster in Iron Man meets Gamora just before she kills Thanos.
Yeah. No, the new title was a good move. That was
Yeah.
it really explains it. It's a much better title for the episode. But yeah, and I do think it's a disappointment for her character in the Guardians of the Multiverse that this is her backstory, because it was rushed and we didn't even get the Infinity Stone Destroyer thing. But anyway,
What if someone inspired Gamora and then distracted Thanos for a moment as she came in for the upper blow? Yeah, that's like, okay.
No, I just could not. I just couldn't buy that she would kill him. I just couldn't. I couldn't buy it. Like, why? Why is she killing him all of a sudden out of nowhere? Like, I couldn't buy it.
Fair enough. All right, so let's go ahead and move over to the next episode. What if Captain Carter fought the Hydra Stomper? Really enjoyed this. I didn't. The Captain Carter episode in season 1 was not one of my favorites. I thought it's okay, but seeing her again in the multiverse finale, and then seeing her again here again, which is taking off from the cliffhanger that was in that finale, I really love her now. And I think this is funny because it's kind of like the Captain America movies, where the first one I didn't really like. It was okay, but the second one was awesome. And it's kind of the same thing here. And they're playing off of the Winter Soldier storyline, but this time the roles are switched. And it's Steve Rogers who's the brainwashed villain. And it's Bucky Barnes is, the old person working at Shield, and I like that. That was cool. And Peggy Carter's Captain Carter, and so that was a very interesting what if scenario. And they pivoted to make it more about the Black Widows, and so they brought in a lot of lore from the Black Widow movies. Natasha's mother showing up and being the villain was a really good twist, and I like that they didn't do the Winter Soldier exactly. And it was similar, but they did their own thing. But they had the same sort of conundrum where her instead of best friend, lover was the villain that was trying to kill her. And I thought that was a nice twist. And I thought it was the character story was very strong, was very emotional. So I loved it. I thought it was a really good episode. So Alyssa, we'll start with you this time.
Yeah, I mean, of course you're going to like this one better because this is the one that is based off the Winter Soldier. So
yeah.
This one was the first Avenger. This one is based off of the Winter Soldier. So next season we'll get like a variation of Civil War, I guess, where Steve Rogers killed Iron Man's family or something, or no. So we'll get hopefully, if they do a variation of Civil War, it's better than the actual movie was. That won't be as contrived as that was. But anyways, I don't want to. Mark and I are on the same page on that. But anyways, Yeah, no, I was going to say a similar thing to what you said, that I do love that they did their own spin on Civil War. We're not focusing on Hydra or being Shield. I mean, and it seems like in this universe, Hydra wasn't Shield. That seems to be the implication that I'm getting, and I'm okay with that. Like, I don't want them to just do the same thing again. So instead, we pivot to the Black Widows and bring in stuff from the Black Widow movie, which I enjoyed that movie. I know everyone hates it, but I didn't love it. It wasn't the best movie, but I kind of had enjoyment out of it. But anyways, I do like that they pulled from the Black Widow movie. I like that they're pulling from all facets of the MCU, and they're combining. We'll talk about this in another episode later, where they're just taking elements from Phase 2 and combining it with elements from Phase 4, and just kind of blending it all together. And I love that. I love what they're doing here. And then this was the first of 3 episodes where Peggy Carter is front and center. And I was already sold on her from this episode. And by the end of the season, I'm like, she's got to be in Secret Wars. But I'm already sold on her as like a front and center character for the MCU, just based off of this episode. And we'll talk a little bit more about her character as we get into the other episodes. But I really love how they're developing her character throughout the season. So yeah, definitely a huge step up from last season's Peggy Carter episode, just like Winter Soldier was a step up from First Avenger. So yeah, really love this episode.
This was, I think, also one of my favorite episodes of it. I love Captain Carter. I love Haley Atwell back as her. And you're right, they did a nice, again, kind of what the MCU does with the Marvel comic source material. They took the MCU material and kind of played with it and twisted it around and took a little bit here and mixed a little bit with over here. I do love that we had Bucky now taking Robert Redford's spot as the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. there, almost doing the exact same scene on the top, which was great. And having Rumlow, and the fact that this isn't a Hydra shield, this is just a shield. Like you said, just a good little variation on that. I think that Lake Bell does an amazing job doing Natalia, the Black Widow. So I love the fact that we've got her back in. I love the relationship kind of built there between her and Captain Carter. I think that's a totally great thing. And I loved how we played that, oh my God, he's still alive, which is that scene that we got at the end in last season. And this kind of takes up right at that moment. Oh, but he's not there for you. He's escaping, and there's this whole thing, and now he's reprogrammed in him again. Like you said, the Winter Soldier feel. But now, because we're taking in Black Widow, we were using the Red Room. And it's just, they were just fun little tweaks like that. I love the fact that he fakes being cured, and I totally bought it because I wanted them to get together, and now it's like, yeah, they can find this way to do it together. And then they switched. That American Town was awesome. I love that. And then, of course, just the all American phrases being set out throughout with all the little robots that turn into killers and armed, and of course that's what they have to. So yeah, it was a great episode, and it really shows that Captain Carter is here because Captain America has an important role, I think, in a lot of Marvel storytelling. He is just that unstoppable, gonna do the right thing, almost the Superman morality with but just being an extra strong man. And now, again, since Chris Evans had his run, and I loved all of that, and he's obviously not back because he's not doing the voice of Steve Rogers, that we can still have a Captain America, but have it be Captain Britain, but have it be Captain Carter, effectively. That we still can maintain this type of character, that we can still have that role being filled, but it's not just, I mean, you could have a Bucky doing Captain America, but that really didn't stick with the MCU, and he's much better as a Winter Soldier. You can bring in Falcon as doing that, but Actually, God, have we seen Falcon at all in the What Ifs? Anthony Mackie's willing to do almost any job. I've seen him in all sorts of movies.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Maybe
He wasn't.
one.
Was he? He wasn't in the 1602.
No, he definitely wasn't in that.
Oh, okay.
No.
Paul would have been season 1. He definitely was not in season 2.
Okay.
So anyway, I think we need someone to fill that role, and I think Captain Carter is a perfect variation that's known, that has sort of an established actress that you can do a live action and you can do an animation and can fill that storytelling role. And the fact that, you know, she's kind of buddies with the Watcher at this point, I love. And we get to the next one, we get those little back and forth moments. I thought was freaking awesome.
Wait, was it this episode or the 1602 one where she was like, what if?
I think it was the 1602.
I think it was 1602.
Yeah. Well, I think it was this episode where she was like, I can hear you, right?
Yeah.
I was in this one. Okay. That was the scene I was thinking. I was just like, that's kind of awesome. It's just, it's kind of a way we can all have fun with this. And I think that's really what it brings to it. There's just kind of a joy with this character around. So yes, give me more.
Yeah, I was gonna say that unlike the first episode, I actually saw the twist coming this time. I knew Steve Rogers was still being brainwashed and just putting on an act.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
They wanted to believe in the love.
All right, so let's go ahead and move to the next episode. What if Kahori reshaped the world? Love this episode. I didn't realize, I knew this is an original character. I didn't realize that she didn't appear in the comics at all. I thought she at least appeared in the comics, but apparently not.
The original.
Yeah, original for What If, and I think she's a great character. I think the setup for this is great. It reminded me a lot of that movie Prey, the latest Predator movie that came out, which is a good movie. I love that movie, and I thought this was different enough to also be great. But it did remind me a lot about that, but in a good way, because I think the storyline was very enticing about the conquistadors coming in and conquering and stealing everyone and destroying the town, and then her going to this magical land, but everyone's very complacent, and her sort of finding she has these powers, but then having to convince everyone else to come and help her fight, which I did see it coming that they would come eventually. I can't remember what it was that she said. She said something like, if you're not willing to stand up for us, then you don't deserve paradise, or something along those lines, which I think was a very powerful line. And and so I thought the ending was extremely satisfying. She went all the way to Spain and like faced off with the queen. Like that was pretty damn good. I want to see, this is another character I want to see a lot more of. I know she appears later in the season again, but I want to see more. I want to see her in the actual MCU now. So I really love this episode. So Darrin, we'll start with you this time.
This was awesome. And this is one of those things where if you're gonna do What If, man, take a big swing now and then. Invent a new character. Tell us really a new kind of story, or in a way, really a Marvel story with new characters in new places and new realms. I mean, Marvel is kind of a way of storytelling, whether it be science, a mix of science and magic and relationships and morals. And these are the heroic stories that are the modern myths that we're going to be telling, of Iron Man stories and Hulk stories, instead of telling Hercules stories and Thor. Okay, so we're still telling Thor stories, but in a Marvel way. And this is a perfect kind of story. It's actually kind of a perfect blend of a Disney and Marvel story in that sense. Is you have the kid that really believes, and their town is attacked, and they manage to get out, but they find themselves a new place, and they can find this source of power that they can grow. And you're right, the fact that we have these, hey, we don't have to worry about it anymore. We just kind of live our magical lives and everything's great and we never die. It's like Cocoon. You never get old and we never die. and kind of a way to push this character that there has to be, with great power comes great responsibility. What's the biggest Marvel lesson of them all? Now that she has access to this, is she just going to be complacent like everyone else and just take the life that they can live? Or is this to help make the world a better place, to defend her people, to expand things out? And I think it's a great story. I think it's told beautifully. It's a fun way of mixing things in. It's the Tesseract, which of course gives Captain Marvel her powers. Is we have kind of the same power sets that are going on right here, only now it's a larger group of people. And I love how they're in a world where the magic and the earth and everything all kind of interplays. It's that fun Avatar bit on the fun, alien planet where everything glows and does cool stuff. And then we have to realize we can't just dwell in this. We have to fight for what's right. So it ends beautifully. I'm excited that we get to see her later on in the season, but in some ways, because you have the risk of having an overpowered character that you always have to nerf down in order to have any challenge with everybody else. I think a What If is a great place to put a character like this, because you don't necessarily have to go back there. Or at the very least, what they end up doing is expanding out. What if that influence and willingness to do the right thing to protect the innocent got spread to the rest of the world? And then later on, this is a perfect kind of power for a multiverse character who is going to run into those hyper-powered individuals. So I think bringing a character like this into What If is the perfect realm to do it in. They did a great story, and I'm really excited if we get to see this character even more in the future.
Yeah, so as I said before, I love that they were taking big risks and just trying something completely different, and just how well it paid off. I will say though, this was 2 episodes where they had Odin being kind of the trigger of the What If. And funny story, like I went away for a couple days, and so I didn't when I came back, I had to watch episode 6 and 7 on this back to back. So I started playing this, and it was like this whole Odin thing. I was like, "Oh, did I accidentally click on episode 7 because I knew what episode 7 was?" And so I actually went back and like double checked that I was on episode 6. I was like, "Oh, okay, I guess Odin does both the things." So, but I like that. I like how. I mean, the trigger event was almost like it was important, but it was almost like inconsequential. Like, okay, Odin, throws this tesseract on the Earth earlier, whatever. Here's our great story. Like, that's what would really impress me about it, is that it was a What If, but it was more so just a good story that I think should fit into the MCU proper. I do really believe that, just like with Peggy Carter, I think Kahori needs to be in Secret Wars. I think we need to see a live action version of her. And you talk about how she's almost too powerful. I think you need characters like that, because the threat that's the Avengers are going to face, I think ultimately is going to be way more powerful than even Thanos was. I mean, we don't know if it's going to still be Kang, or if it's going to be Kang and Doctor Doom, or what it's going to be now because of the whole Jonathan Majors thing. But so far, the way that Kang has been set up, I mean, there's all these different variants of him. They are all knowing. They know the future. They know the past. And they seem like a pretty insurmountable group of kings, group of villains. And so whatever, even if they diverge from that a little bit and bring in Doctor Doom or the Beyonder or whatever it is that they do, it is still, we know it's going to be a villain, nothing like any other MCU character has faced in the past. It's going to make Thanos look like nothing. So I think you do need characters like this who are super, super powerful, because I don't think that, the way they're setting up the villains, I don't think necessarily that she is too powerful to take on the villains that they're setting up for, whether it ends up being Kang as they set up or they diverge to Doctor Doom or whatever they do. I think it's going to be a really tough adversary. So I do like that they're bringing Kahori in, and I do hope and really expect her to be in live action in Secret Wars. I think they've just set up an amazing character for this multiversal saga, and I absolutely love that. I think my one disappointment, and this is something that they could still correct in season 3 if they want to. I want to know more about this world that she comes from, because the implications is this is a world where there ain't no white people in America in our time period, because she's taking care of all of that stuff. Like, there's still Native American society should still be thriving in the 21st century in this world. And I want to see that happen. I want to see more of that. But it does appear that, in the next episode, she appears and she speaks English. So I think her interactions with kind of the white people is more from her multiversal adventures. I am just assuming, it seems implied, that she is kind of immortal, probably lives for a long time. By the time we see her with Captain Carter, she's probably been around for a while. Doctor Strange has probably been chasing her around for a while. Because now she knows English. She's aware of the multiverse. So she's probably her interactions with the white America as we know it is probably through the multiverse. But it's implied that in her universe, that shouldn't ever happen because she nips that in the bud. So I'm kind of curious to see that. And I guess they don't necessarily have to. I just I want to. I kind of want to see that. So that was my only disappointment. Well, what happens in her universe though? So maybe they could do it in season 3. Maybe not. Who knows?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, that I would like to see a 21st century version of America when, yeah.
I mean, it's called Reshape the World. So how shape the world?
Yeah. Yeah. But I was going to mention, since you brought up Kang, did you hear the rumors that they're trying to get the guy from Fear the Walking Dead and Euphoria to play Kang?
Yes, I did. I've also heard that that still doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be the big bad anymore, because they're calling it Avengers 5 instead of Avengers King Dynasty. So could put him in a lesser role now. We don't really know, even if they do recast him. But yeah, that guy is the number one rumored actor to play King, which tells me he probably won't. But
I was going to say, you're talking about Coleman Domingo?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I haven't heard that one, so
not be looking at YouTube or looking on the internet at all, because it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Peek out of my little corner of Twitter.
I'm tired of seeing Coleman Domingo.
Yes.
It's everywhere. But it sounds like even if they do recast him, that maybe he won't be as big as he was originally going to be. Who knows? So we don't know where they're going with it.
Yeah, I personally hope that they stick with the King idea, because I think they build him, especially in Loki, they build him up. I think it would be very disappointing if they just abandoned the idea for another villain. I don't care if they recast. I don't care who they recast. I think they need to stick with the character. But it's funny because you can't trust the internet, because as soon as Jonathan Majors got fired, I saw articles everywhere saying, "Oh, it's confirmed they're going to recast Kang." And then I saw other articles, "Oh, it's confirmed they're getting rid of Kang." So nobody knows.
Yeah, and from what I have heard, that there are reputable sources, sources that are normally reliable and have good intel on both sides, that are saying recast and no recast. So yeah, who knows? It's whatever, just figure it out. We'll see what you do, and I'll see if I like it or not.
Look, I'm fine if they recast Kang, as long as they recast him with Terrence Howard. I think that we could just have a Terrence Howard,
Oh,
Don
jeez.
Cheadle moment to scare off. It'll be great. It'll be fun on set, is what I'm saying on that.
Yeah, but back to the episode. I thought that her powers reminded me kind of Quicksilver, and he got his powers from the Tesseract too, if I recall.
Yeah, and in
No,
fact,
he got his powers from the Mind Stone,
Oh, is that different?
from the staff. From the staff
Oh,
versus the Cosmic Cube, aka the Tesseract,
I thought it
which
was
is
the
the
same thing.
Space
I don't know.
Stone.
Oh, that's the Space Stone. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm confused.
Which
Well,
is why you could travel to this different world, which is great, but
Oh,
then
right.
ultimately becomes like, yeah, it's a whatever power. It glows. You do stuff. It'll be fine.
no, but
Uh,
the scene where she's like, this is a different episode actually, where Peggy Carter first encounters her, and she's like running really fast. Secret. That was exactly the scene that Quicksilver was in.
Oh yeah, totally,
yeah,
totally.
yeah.
You know, that was one thing I did love in the episode is while she's trying to get out and her buddy's just like poking and prodding at her. It's like, oh yeah, no one's done that. Oh yeah, 14 steps is the furthest anyone's ever gone. Like, yeah, other people have tried this. They just can't do it, which of course shows her dedication and focus, and
Yeah.
which is what allows her to eventually
Even
just bring
later
the
on,
portal
she
to her.
doesn't need to do that. She's just like, come here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Can you just throw me up there? Anybody ever try that? Catapults. We haven't invented those yet. Okay.
And the other thing I was going to mention, this is the first of 3 episodes taking place deep in the past, which is another sort of unique thing about season 2 that I noticed. But so yeah, let's go ahead and get into the next episode. What if Hela found the 10 rings? So from the title, I thought she was going to get the 10 rings, but she actually doesn't, which that threw me off. One question I want to ask is, do they do Hunt for Red October switch in this episode? Unlike the previous episode where they stick with the Mohawk language and have subtitles, I get the impression that all the characters are still speaking Mandarin or whatever, and that they just did the Hunt for Red October switch where they showed them speaking their native language and then switched to English. So you kind of get the impression that it's still in English for our benefit, but really they're supposed to be speaking their own language.
I think they did, because she did show that she could speak Chinese when she shows up. So then I think, or Mandarin. So I think they just end up doing the switch because I don't remember reading a whole lot of subtitles throughout the episode. So
yeah, I know they were speaking English for most of it, but yeah,
it's the universal language.
that's the impression I get. But it's interesting that they decided to do the 2 episodes in different ways. But anyway, yeah, so this is what Alyssa was talking about, blending phase 2 and phase 4, where you get or actually, so this is phase 1
and phase 4.
Bit of phase 1, a bit of phase 3 with Hela, and then a bit of phase 4. But yeah, it's but they do a lot of directly pulling from the first Thor movie. A lot of dialogue is exactly the same. The plot's kind of similar. You're not worthy of the hammer, and this time you're not worthy of the helmet. But I liked it. I think it really works because they do something original with it, and combining it with Shang-Chi is really interesting. A really fascinating combination that I definitely would have thought of, combining sort of Norse mythology with ancient Chinese culture. It's very interesting in that she actually goes to this place. I can't remember what it's called. The place where Shang-Chi's mother is from, and Michelle Yeoh. But yeah, she actually goes there and sort of becomes one, and I buy it. Like, I totally buy that she would encounter her inner demons. And what I loved about this episode is that because Ragnarok really framed Hela as the villain. Oh, she's this evil creature, but this is reframing that and showing actually it's Odin who is the villain, because he's the one who, and I like the little flashback that showed him like being a dick to her when she was a little kid. And that he was the one that sort of trained her and raised her to be evil, and then when he no longer needed her to be evil, he just disregarded her, whatever. Oh, wow, blah. But he was the one that made her that way and didn't sort of just disregard her without taking responsibility for his actions. And then, of course, he still wants to, once he learns that of the 10 rings, he wants to be an asshole and conquer Earth now. So it just it really frames Odin as a villain, and I love that. And I totally bought them repurposing Hela as the hero and then teaming up with, oh god, I can't remember his name. I just call him the Mandarin. Yeah,
Wenwu? Maybe?
Wenwu, isn't it?
Wenwu, is it? Okay. Yeah, teaming up with Wenwu. Yeah, that was great. So I think so. But anyway, I thought it was really liked this episode. Alyssa, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of a lot of the things you said. I love the blend of. I mean, who would have thought? Let's just take a character from Ragnarok. Let's put her in the original Thor movie. Just do that plot and with the same lines, and then bring Shang-Chi into it. And I mean, it's brilliant. Like it works so well. I mean, again, like there's a way where they could have done this where it just seems like you're just trying too hard to redo the MCU. You're just rehashing things, but I just don't think that that's what the result was. And what if, like, I really do think they came up with creative ways to take elements from our known MCU and even at times just doing the same lines again or repurposing lines, repurposing scenes and making it work and making it brilliant. And I love the idea that there can be a universe where hell is not so bad, where she redeems herself, and where she goes into that the world, with the I think of it as Michelle Yeoh's world, whatever, and they bring back Morris, so that was fun. They did not bring back Ben Kingsley's Mandarin, thankfully, but they bring back Morris, and so that worked surprisingly well. Like I just didn't think that would work out, but I bought it. Like I bought the redemption of this character. It is a variant, of course, of Hela, but if we now have a variant of Loki who redeems himself in the Loki series, so why not a variant of Hela also as well, who is redeemable? I agree that I love the twist that let's just turn this upside down and make Odin the villain here, and totally believable. It makes me think that in 616 he kind of was an asshole there too. Like I don't think that I mean, we mostly see him when he's this kind of like old retired like god, where he's just kind of winding down his life, and he seems to have redeemed himself. But I mean, that very much happened in our universe as well, where he just used Hela for his own purposes and then disregarded her. So I love the episode really highlighting that and kind of turning what we know upside down on its head. So yeah, really creative, great stuff.
You definitely hit on what I was going to touch on. This is actually the newest episode in Marvel's longest running series. What if the villain was a hero? Doing it, of course, with Loki in the Great Series, and doing it now with Hela. This kind of was really mixed on this one, at least going into it, because again, it was like, I don't know if I really care about this going in, but I'll see where you're going. And then once it's like, oh, we're doing Thor, but with Hela in that role to be redeemed, kind of lost my interest in it, because again, and they kept hitting different points, even as they have the different kind of interpretations and ways and variances on it. It was very much that exact same story. And yet, damn, if not by the end of it, I was like, man, that was good. I like seeing you coming in. And yeah, man, Hela, find your inner, be the real hero. Oh, man, you are like the worst dad. You made Loki a villain, and you made Hela a villain. You just make all your kids villains. It's your job. So that was, like I said, I wasn't really into this particular episode. It would be probably near the bottom still in most of mine, but despite the repetition, despite the fact I knew exactly where it was going, by the end, when she has her moment and turns it around on him and becomes the white Hela to defend and really have mercy and understand, it's like, man, that still works on me. I still cry at Hallmark commercials, Marvel's little switcheroos and making the villain a hero and doing redemption. Man, that's still gonna get me. So yeah, I enjoyed this. And again, it's kind of this fun now multiversal variant to have floating around out there, who is super powerful and can do a bunch of things if you need them, or it can just be off in their section of the multiverse and not have to play in the sandbox at all. So I thought this was for more of a season one type of variation on a character. They did it better. I really enjoyed this.
I really like that they got Kate Blanchett to actually.
Yes,
that was, yeah. I didn't think she would do it, but yeah, that was great having her actually do the voice. All right, so yeah, let's go ahead and get into the next episode. What if the Avengers assembled in 1602? I really like this episode. I thought it was a great episode, but can someone explain the premise, because I was a bit confused about. So I know there's like a rift in time that we find out at the end of the episode was caused by Steve Rogers hitting the time stone and sort of fucked up the time, so it's like time are connected. But is it saying like it when he did that, it like fucked things up and took a lot of people from the 21st century, all the Avengers and all the superheroes, and threw them back in? Because when I was first watching this episode, I thought that we were in Asgard because it had Thor, and Hela was the queen, and Thor took over for her. And then I realized at some point, no, this is supposed to be England. It's just all our Avenger characters are there. Yes, can someone explain that to me? I'm a bit confused.
The thing that caused Steve Rogers to get transported into this universe smashed two universes together effectively. It took the 21st century kind of Avengers-ish world and smashed it into a different world that was in 1602. So you have a blending of those two things where, yeah, all of our heroes are there, but they're now playing characters within this world, which is half real and half mythological, since obviously Robin Hood is fiction.
Wait, I thought
Shakespeare's real.
I didn't think it was two different universes. I thought it was the same universe in different time periods.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Within one universe, they went back to 1602, and it was 1602 kind of merged with the 21st century of one universe. Is what I took.
Yeah. And Darrin, I watched a historian video that Robin Hood is based off of real people.
Yeah,
Robin of Locksley, you bastard. It could be two times. I thought that they had said two universe. I thought they had thrown a line in there real quick, kind of explaining what it is, but it felt like a half tossed away line. So it could be two times, but yeah, it's effectively, the 21st century and 1602 got slammed together, and those characters all intermixed.
I just think it's a wild coincidence that all the Avengers and superheroes happen to be in the same spot. I don't know.
Yeah, well,
you just gotta go with it.
That's why in the end only Peggy Carter's left, because then everyone else is returned.
Yeah, everyone else returned to their rightful time. But the main thing I have to say about this episode is Hulk smash thee.
I loved having Banner as the man in the iron mask effectively. Yeah.
I know, I know some people said this, and I kind of thought this the same when they first showed the man in the iron mask. I'm like, Dr. Doom.
wasn't Doctor Doom, but it did
Yeah.
look a lot like Doctor
Yeah.
Doom.
No, I knew it wasn't Dr.
Yeah, I wasn't going, oh, that's Doctor Doom, but yeah, it definitely did.
Yeah, there is no way they're gonna premiere
Yeah.
Doctor Doom
No.
in a What If episode. They're saving that one up. They gotta be sure they get all that just right.
Yeah. No, I knew that, like, consciously, but at the same time, I was like, that looks like Dr. Doom.
Maybe that was their way of saying that Doctor Doom is coming. Like,
yeah, it could be Easter egg. But yeah, I really liked this episode mainly for the character story. I thought it was really powerful having, again, Peggy Carter being the hero and having her meet Steve Rogers, who is Captain America. So you get Captain Carter and Captain America together. And one of my again, this is another episode where they throw a lot of lines that were in different movies. But one of my favorites was when Steve Rogers asked about Steve Rogers and in Peggy's world, and it's like, oh, you got to tell me about him sometime. He's like, no, I don't think I will, which is exactly what Steve Rogers said to Sam about his time with Peggy Carter. So I thought that was a cool callback, and it was the tragic love story, and I love how they played, like, she had a tragic story with Steve Rogers earlier this season. Now she has another tragic story with this version of Steve Rogers. It seems like everything's going great, but no, he's the focal point that they've been looking for, and it kind of ends tragically, and it actually feeds into the next episode nicely. And it was cool seeing all the various characters in different roles. But yeah. What I get the impression that Loki didn't have any powers in this version.
It did seem that way.
Yeah.
It did seem that way, but
just
anyway.
Acting. That's his
power.
That's all the power he needs.
Darrin, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, this was a fun one. And we're continuing to play with, I mean, mentioned it before, kind of the Carter and Rogers canon. Much like, between Gwen and Spider-Man, one of them's going to have to die. We kind of seem to have a similar, universal push and pull here, that they can't be together, that one's going to be lost to time while the other isn't, or one's going to be a hero, the other one's, that something's going to kind of keep them apart. And I really like that. I mean, I, of course, want her and Hydra Stomper Steve to get back together and they can still have their relationship. I believe it can happen. But there is something about that kind of tragic drive to a character. And the fact that she really kind of goes through that whole little arc herself in the midst of this is realizing man, maybe I'm never going to have this. Maybe that happiness is never going to be here for me. But of course, as a Captain Carter, Captain America analog, they're still going to have to make the right choice going forward, which is, again, I think why this character serves an important role in these what ifs in the multiverse in whatever form they're going to be in. Loved all of the little variations. And again, I like the fact that we not only have Happy Hogan, but we have a freak version of Happy Hogan, which What If just showed us a few episodes ago. So they're building their staple. Having Paul Rudd back there as Scott Lang, who's just always eating and cracking jokes. I think it's kind of a perfect little variant. It was fun seeing these variations and having these little moments and having these interactions, even though we can't always see these up on the screen, that we can play with all of these little moments. This is kind of What If and the bigger fun potentials that I think really kind of excite the audience, is we get to see these different interpretations, but they're still all of our characters and they're still kind of doing things. And Hulk is now just smashing D. You're right. This is a great line. You can't be wrong with it. So yeah. And of course, Carter ends up making the sacrifice play, and we feel like she's lost. But of course, they're going to bridge this into the next one, which is fun, and that's why I kind of like this as kind of a Carter trilogy here. Is we get our kind of first adventure, which continues from last season, and that immediately switches right into this one. Oh, before you can go say, Steve, we need you in a different universe. And then, oh, okay, well, you solved the things here. Now we're going to leave you or snatch you to another universe. We'll find out. But yeah, I thought that this was a blast, and again, I love Carter, and I love even her interactions with the Watcher with this. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to do what I'm going to do. Don't care about your advice. Get out of here if you can't be helpful. Shoot, Watcher. Shoot, Watcher. Shoot.
Actually, this might have been the one where she said, I can hear you right. It might have been this one. I get it all mixed up, but
Oh, I thought it was the other one.
yeah, I don't
know.
I was also a little bit fuzzy on what was actually happening. I did not think it was Asgard. I knew it was England, but I was a little bit confused on what exactly was going on. But I think I'm feeling pretty comfortable enough with it that I see the two time periods merging. Maybe only specific event, maybe because it was just the people who were in the area when Steve Rogers punctured the time stone. Maybe it's just the people who are around. I don't know why Happy Hogan would have been.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Hogan is the Hulk. He is a version of the Hulk in that universe, so he was there. So
maybe, yeah.
So whatever. I'm feeling pretty okay about that now. So the more that I think about it, the more that I've really enjoyed this episode. He has a lot of fun, having Scott Lang in there and all those different things. And yes, I love the canon events of Steve and Peggy Carter, where they just can't be together, except that one timeline where Steve went back in time and had a good life with Peggy Carter. But so there, and I think there was a line to that effect where Steve was like, I think somewhere there's got to be somewhere where we make it work. And there's at least one place. But I love that tragedy that, most universes, they could just not quite get there. There's always something tragic happens to them. And I also wanted to talk about Peggy Carter's character development here, because this and the next one really show her as someone who just has to be the hero. She cannot let it go. If I remember correctly, I believe the Watcher was like, okay, I can take you back to your universe now. She's like, no, I'm not letting this universe die. And the Watcher's like, universes die all the time. Like, billions of universes die. It's not a big deal. I mean, you can kind of see where he's coming from. He's the Watcher. He sees all the universes. He sees a bunch of them die. So to him, it's just like, yeah, it happens, whatever. But for Peggy, it's like, no, I'm not letting this one die because I'm here and I am going to save it. Even despite the fact that the King, Thor, turns against her, calls her a traitor, she doesn't care. She's still determined to save this universe that's not even her own. And I think that really speaks a lot for who this character is. I also think that carries over into the next episode. So I found that character development really interesting, which is another reason why I love this character, because I feel like she's being really well developed. And I think she's got to be in Secret Wars. So, although there was a bit of confusion in the beginning, I think the more that I sit with this episode, the more I really love it.
Did anyone else find the way that Thor turned when Peggy Carter was like totally, gung ho and getting her a little bit contrived? Because I thought
the plot needed to happen.
Yes, that's what I thought. That was kind of just necessary for the plot.
Yeah, probably a little contrived, but I wasn't bothered by it. So.
Yeah. I was just a teensy weensy little bit bothered by it. It's still a great episode.
He's just fueled by vengeance. That's all.
It kind of reminded me of Party Thor, of not being a very smart Thor. But anyway. All right, so let's get to the next episode of the finale. What if Strange Supreme intervened? Actually, I think I'll let you guys talk first. I'll go last this time. The question I'll throw out is, do you think that this is inconsistent with how he's portrayed? Strange Supreme was portrayed in season 1 finale, because he was more portrayed as like a hero. He was going out of his way to save the multiverse, and now all of a sudden he's the bad guy again.
Who do you want to go first?
You can go first, Alyssa.
No, I agreed with what you said in your review, and I disagree with a certain YouTube channel that I watched where I had to stop watching the video because he was annoying me because he was like, "Oh, I can't believe they made Doctor Strange the villain here. He already had his redemption," and I was like, "But he did he? Did he?" Because
Oh, I didn't see that YouTube video.
heavy spoilers.
Oh, really? Okay.
Spoilers doing that. It was like he started complaining about it in the middle of his review, and I was like, click, and I was like, because you're wrong. Like, when did Doctor Strange had his redemption? He helped the Guardians of the Multiverse. There was no saying he wasn't doing it for his own purposes. I didn't see where his redemption came. As far as I could tell, like, he very easily still could be the same Strange that we saw at the end of episode 4 of last year. And he was. I mean, he still had all those different demons that he incorporated into himself. How did those go away? So, if anything, one could say that the finale was the one that was out of step, but I don't even think that was, because I think there's a world where you can say he was doing all of that for his own purposes. That he was like, okay, I can help save the multiverse, but then I can get all of these different, like, universe killers and then universe heroes to bring back my Christine. Like, that all along that was his plan, and I think that works well for me. That makes a lot of sense. I don't think he was sure he helped out the Guardians of the Multiverse, but was he redeemed? I didn't see where he was redeemed. So I think that it makes sense that he was doing that all for his own motives, and that he never actually was redeemed. And that actually makes a lot more sense to me than the fact that he was all of a sudden redeemed in the finale last year. So I'm on your team, Mark.
So try to say that the story of the person who about how power corrupts was corrupted by power doesn't make sense. I'm not sure about that. No, I mean, in some ways you can even look at it almost like an addiction. Maybe he did redeem himself, but he is an eternally overwatching multiverses. At a point, especially if he's joining up with the Guardians of the Multiverse, there's going to be another temptation. Oh, look, I just saved the multiverse from this horrible being. You know, I could sacrifice that horrible being and probably have a fortune to save this. Maybe if I just collected all the horrible beings that are dangerous to the multiverse, I could have my one back. I could do it the right way. I mean, given time, given thoughts, given, like Alyssa, you still have all of the demons attached to you. Yeah, I could see how that totally works. I mean, and I think it does play well, and I think he actually plays that character and those beats very well. He's starts out, hey, we're friends, let's help each other out. You're doing a thing, I can return you to you. I'm not hurting your universe. I'm just going to deal with these things over here. They're bad guys. And I think he really worked it well, where it seemed like he was convinced he was doing the right thing until at the end he's kind of like, no, that's it. Sacrifice all the fuckers for me. So yeah, I thought Strange's arc in this and within the storyline to me made total sense. I didn't feel there was anything kind of contrived. That felt like a right direction. And in some ways, I think you have to deal with some of these super uber powerful characters and take them off the board, just because it just allows other stories to go on. I don't tend to like these like super gods and things like that floating around out there. But no, to me it made sense. And yeah, I loved how we have Carter isn't even within this isn't going to be bent from her direction, whether it's the Watcher, whether it's Strange, whether it's whatever. She is going to find what the right thing to do is and then do that. And the fact that she finds a similar being in Kahori, I thought was awesome. And then to have the two of them team up gives you have two Avengers right there, and they've got all of the powers, because we've shown how that has already happened last season with the armor and all of that stuff. I love how they took out Killmonger with that too. Just like deflated him. Was hilarious. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. And actually, to me, the previous episode and this one really underlines why we actually seem to have a relationship between the Watcher and Captain Carter. Because, like Alyssa said, Carter's going to always do the right thing. And I think, even if it's not her universe, she's dedicated. She's going to save the day. She's going to be the hero. And I think for a being that watches universes fall all the time, someone standing up against that is going to catch your attention. And I think that's why because Carter just constantly surprises the Watcher in her dedication. I love that by the end of this, we actually have like a little journey. Yeah, I'll take you home, but let's see some sights on the way. That was beautiful.
Yeah, I agree with the Strange Supreme. The thing is, I think that his portrayal in this episode is more consistent with his portrayal in the first episode that he appeared in season 1. So at first I was thinking, oh, maybe the multiverse is out of place, but more I think about it, no, it's not actually out of place. It could be, well, maybe it was his plan all along to get the superpowered being so he could take it back and feed it to his machine, or maybe he actually was thinking he would go along and do the right thing until he saw that opportunity and grabbed it, which was consistent with his character here. But anyway, Alyssa, did you have any more thoughts on the rest of the episode you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't got to talk about it yet. So
so go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I love putting Peggy Carter and Kahori together. I think these have to be characters that we see in live action. I know I keep saying this, but they have to be. These are great characters. I love their interactions. And yeah, I had no problem with the Strange Supreme stuff. That all made sense to me. And the redemption at the end. I watched some video that pointed out something that I forgot, that he split into two Stranges, and there was a good Strange, and then he absorbed the good Strange. And so somebody was saying like, oh, it was the good Strange that kind of asserted itself at the end. But however you want to look at that, I did buy that he sacrificed himself at the end. I liked that ending. I think where this episode loses me a little bit, and where it's probably not one of my favorites of the season, is just getting into the typical Marvel finale thing where it's big superpowered beings fighting against big superpowered beings. And I think it was you, Mark, who said you get a little bored with that. And I kind of do too. Like, I just kind of like, like, it's just, I don't know, when you have all powerful beings go against all powerful beings, like, where's the challenge there? I don't know. It's just, so it lost me a little bit with that. So that's why I would probably say I wouldn't call this my favorite episode of the season. It loses me a little bit there. But still a lot of great stuff. Still love Kahori, still love Captain Carter, love the resolution. And love that they tie this in to Loki. Someone pointed out some video I watched that they really aren't doing that very often in phase 4 and 5, that we're actually taking two projects and connecting them. So I found that to be very satisfying, is that big, the tree of life that Loki created, the multiversal tree, that we get to see it here. That actually really got my heart pumping. I was really excited about that. So I can't complain about that.
Yeah, overall, I really liked this episode, but I agree 100% with what you just said about the two superpowered beings going into it, because she had all the Infinity Stones, and you had Kahori's already superpowered going against Strange Supreme, who has all these superpowers. And it just tends to be a blur, and I just get a bit lost. But I don't know. I guess I thought it was kind of cool when all the people who were being fed to the machine started throwing their weapons to Captain Carter.
Yeah, I did like that too. That was
But more of I like the character beats and the story. How Strange Supreme was trying to seduce Peggy Carter by being, look, I can give you. You should understand where I'm coming from because you're, can never get with Steve. And did he even promise her? I thought he like promised her, I can get you to be
I think
reunited.
he might have, yeah.
Yeah, and so that was good, but I like how she overcame that because she was smarter than or more accepting than the Strange Supreme, who was too deluded by all those evil demons, that she knew that she needed to let him go, and that if it wasn't meant to be, it wasn't meant to be, and she wasn't going to destroy the universe and kill all these other people just to satisfy her means. And it was also interesting that because in the previous one they showed the end of the episode where Strange Supreme was, no, punish me, don't punish the universe, and because his universe was being destroyed, and eventually that's how he solves the situation. He does punish himself in order to save the universe, which I thought was beautiful. And the fact that Peggy Carter is the one that literally got him to defeat his inner demons, his literal inner demons, I thought was that. So it's the character stories that I really liked that really held this up, and of course, great Saint Kaori, and as well. I totally did not expect her to be the one that Strange was hunting for. I thought he was recruiting her for a task. So that was an interesting twist I didn't expect. But it all made sense. And I like how, again, they're building Peggy Carter's character here. And even though I didn't like the overpowered stuff, it was kind of cool seeing her have all of the Infinity Stones, even for a bit. But so, and the ending where Christine is alive and the universe is fine, like, I think this was a really, really powerful ending.
Well, and that makes it a real sacrifice. I think it's important too, is because Strange wasn't then born into that universe, but everybody else was and was able to come back as kind of that pure sign of sacrifice. I also think you were right, and it's interesting that the fact that Peggy is able to resist, the promises, the temptations of Strange, I think directly ties into the previous episode where she already had to face the fact that she was going to constantly have to let Steve go, that they couldn't be together. And maybe this is just the way forward. I think while she would always make the right choice anyway, I think that the fact that she already kind of dealt with those Steve issues, she was able to allowed her to resist Steve even longer. I mean, that's what she says. He wouldn't want me to, and Christine wouldn't want you to do this either. And I think that was the great bit of turnaround, to be able to throw it back in Strange's face and allow him to quite literally fight off his inner demons, which again, beautifully done. Sometimes stuff hitting it straight on the nail is too much, but I think in this one it worked very well.
Do you think that this was better than the finale of last year? Because I think that.
Yes, I definitely do.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I was a little let down last year. I think there was more, and I think it was because there were more important character stakes going on.
I think last year's finale was a little rushed.
Well, especially now having seen the Gamora episode now, I think that retroactively affects my opinion of it's like it wasn't even that important. Like that. I mean, imagine if we had seen that in season 1. And like, wait, what? Why isn't Tony Stark here?
Yeah. Yeah, and the Watcher shows up. He's like, "Not you, Stark. I'm here for Gamora." Okay.
Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
All right. So now I want to ask the question of what was your favorite episode of the season? I'll go first because I said it in my review already. It's the 1602 episode. Even though the premise was a little bit confusing, I still thought, to me, this had sort of the most heart, seeing Peggy having to go through her own crisis, and, has Darrin said, like, sticking up for the world and not just abandoning it to die, and then having that tragic love story with Steve Rogers again. I thought it was really well played. I thought the character stories in the finale were good as well, but again, they would had that overpowered stuff for a couple of minutes, which bored me. So I thought the 1602 was more fun. It was funny. So that was my favorite episode of the season. Whoever wants to go next can go next.
I'm just going to agree with you.
Okay.
I think that's probably mine as well. Just because, I mean, I really liked the Carter versus the Hydra Stomper, which was fun. I love the mix up there. Again, I love the relationship between Black Widow and Captain Carter. I want to see more of that. And so I'm like, get back to your universe. I want to see the two of you go out and get the Hydra Stomper and do more fun stuff. But I think this was the best, like, what if? I mean, really, to just bring in all the different characters, to touch on stories you've told before, to mix it up and doing it in an interesting way, to have fun with it, to actually have a Carter that's aware and interacting with the multiverse and the Watcher and can kind of make those little comments and still have that real heart underneath it and sacrifice to do the right thing. I think that episode just kind of encapsulated all of it. So it had the drama, it had the character, it had the story, it had the fun, it had the heart. It was perfect. In that sense, I think it was the best collection altogether.
Yeah, this is a tough one because it's really a tie between two episodes. So, but I will pick one. And I am actually going to go with episode 5, which was the Peggy Carter episode, because it was just such a perfect variation of the Winter Soldier story, where it brought in all the great elements of that film. Instead of the best friend, it's the lover, and this tragic canon event where Peggy and Steve just can't seem to get together, and just really paved the way for Captain Carter to be a major player. But I think they develop her character further in the next 2 episodes that she appears in. But I think this was the one that really opened that door. And I think so the one that is kind of tied with is the 1602 one that you guys are talking about. I think the fact that it took me a while to kind of unravel the confusion of what is actually going on probably is what knocks it down a little bit. So that's probably why I would go with the Peggy Carter episode as my favorite, but the 1602 one is kind of right there with it. I did really love that one too.
Cool. Awesome. So we can go ahead and wrap this discussion up. I didn't know if you had anything last minute thoughts on the season you wanted to throw out. I thought it was an amazing season. I gave it a 9 out of 10.
I also gave it a 9 out of 10, even if it was a little bit lower ranked in my top 10. I still have it as a 9.
Yeah, actually, I just want to make one minor acknowledgement to people watching if we have some frustrated comic book people. Okay, look, I know the comic book Marvel Universe Central is 616, and they have called the MCU Universe 1999-99. But the MCU refers to itself as 616. So who cares? Okay, it's the Central Universe of the particular genre. This is the film universe, and it's 616 Central, and the comic is 166. And if you want to call it 1999999, that's fine. Just within the universe itself, it refers to itself as Universe 616.
There's a different multiverse. This is the film multiverse.
Yeah,
that's right.
Multiverse.
You're thinking multiverse A, not multiverse B. Get me on multiverse F, man. Those bastards.
Yeah. The comics and the movies are different things.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So we'll go ahead and wrap things up. Thanks for everyone watching. Anyone checking this out in the archives, thanks so much for checking us out. And big thanks to our special guests. So if you want to I know neither of you doing that much at the moment, but if you want to give a quick shout out where people can find you and what you're up to, Darrin, we'll start with you.
Hi. I occasionally, or at least used to, host Steve's Reviews. I haven't done anything like that for a while. It's been a little bit on hold. for the moment. I'm excited that Echo is coming out. I believe it's tomorrow night. I'm looking forward to seeing this. We may be seeing the blend of the MCU and Marvel television universes, or at least sections of that. Excited to see where that goes. But if you want to catch any of my old reviews of a whole lot of Marvel stuff, some zombies, a few little sci-fi here, and a lot of live streams with these two, you can go to my channel, and that's D's Reviews here on YouTube. And that's it for now.
Yeah, so I have a channel, Alyssa Jean's Reviews. I also am not doing anything right now, but I just stopped just now in January. I am no longer producing regular content. I will pop on and do things occasionally. However, I have plenty of previous content for you to go and check out, especially if you like Star Trek. Got a lot of Star Trek stuff. I've covered all the modern Trek shows, Lower Decks, Strange New Worlds. I also recently concluded my top of 100 in the Star Trek franchise, so you should go check that out. I recently did my top 10 shows of 2023, so go check that out. Plenty of stuff to go check out. You can still subscribe. There's no harm in subscribing. So yeah, go check out all of that over on Alyssa Jean's Reviews.
Cool. And if you're finding me for the first time, my name is Mark. My channel is Enchantment of Eternity. If you're into Marvel, I just today released my part 1 of my rewatch review reaction to the MCU Phase 4, where I watched the first 7 projects of Phase 4 and react to them. It's like a 2.5 hour long video, so if you have time, you can watch in pieces. Just dropped that today. And of course, I also mostly cover Star Trek on my channel. Covering season 3 of Star Trek Next Generation. Thank God, finally got to the good season, and releasing those one episode at a time. And I probably will do a video for Echo later this week as well. So yeah, you can check out my channel for that. So anyway, yeah, thanks so much for watching. Thank you so much, and everyone who joined, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.